tonight's panel is going to be structured in a three-part series, right? The then, the now, and the future. And so, to get things started, what we'd like to do is take things way back. Well, not too far back. Way back.
He was back there.
Oh, well, back then. Okay, we'll take it back then. All right.
Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you.
One of the only people in this room I could actually say that.
These two.
True.
So, Paul, what were some of your first experiences that shaped your initial yearning to serve, and how has that evolved over the years?
Well, look, my parents always told my brother and my sister and I that we should always give back to society in any way that we could. And if we were lucky enough to, make some money, that we should definitely give money. If we weren't lucky enough to have made money, give your time and your energy and your wisdom. So I started at KKR. We were close to being a startup. I was the 11th person on the payroll, so we spent the first 5 or 6 years with all we did was work, and we didn't have time to really do these kinds of things. And then one day, we made a few dollars, and we were lucky, and we said to each other, we really needed to do more for the community, and so we started to get involved in the community. So it really started for me probably in the mid '80s.
Danny, how about you?
I think similarly to Paul, I was very privileged to have a family that had philanthropy and or civic service on both sides. Both sides of my grandparents were incredibly philanthropic. My maternal grandfather, Irving Harris, never retired, I shouldn't say that. He died working at the age of 94, but he stopped thinking only about business, probably about 40 years before he died. So from about the age of 50 years on, he was as committed to philanthropy as anything else. And so in the same way as I know people whose parents were both doctors, and of course that's what they're going to do is be a doctor, or both your parents were lawyers, so you go be a lawyer or educator. We had this sense that you get involved and you join boards and you roll up your sleeves and you work and you raise money and you help organizations think how they can be stronger. And so I don't think I've spent 1 year of my life since 1985 not being on at least 4 not-for-profit boards myself, which is too many. But it teaches me and it gives me way more than I've ever given it.
Sure. Well, so that ideology of philanthropy, of giving back, has kind of evolved over time, right? It's also grown with you as you've grown as leaders. So what were some of the parallels, if any, throughout your journey of service and your development as a leader throughout your life?
I think, the first, as I think back, the first not-for-profit job I had wasn't really a not-for-profit job. It was in politics, and I was working for a presidential candidate in 1980 by the name of John Anderson, who was running as the independent candidate against Ronald Reagan, who, as you know, won in a landslide, and Jimmy Carter, the incumbent president. And we got 7.5% of the vote, which meant I got my last $214 a week paycheck. So it's sort of not-for-profit, but 100% of the people who reported to me were volunteers.
Sure.
And the reason I'm telling you this story is that completely shaped, to this day, how I think about management and leadership, which is that the only way I could motivate the 20-something people who were reporting to me, since they didn't get a paycheck, I couldn't give them a raise, I couldn't dock on their pay, couldn't give them a bonus, was to talk about purpose and why you're coming to work. And so I think what I learned is that then when I opened Union Square Cafe, I think I tried from the very beginning to say, if you're good enough to work here and you're probably good enough to have gotten 25 other jobs at the same pay rate, I should treat you as a volunteer since you're good enough to share your gifts with this restaurant. And I think that paradigm shift, which would later, somebody wrote a book, Robert Greenleaf wrote a great book called Servant Leadership, where it really codified how putting the customer second and putting your own team first is actually a really smart way to create a virtuous cycle. But it all started because of that first experience I had working in politics.
Sure, sure. How about you, Paul? You know, you've been involved in philanthropy since day one. How has that changed who you are as a leader?
You know, I said earlier, when I started at KKR, I was the 11th person on the payroll, so there was no structure, you know, very little organization. We grew quickly. We were doing a lot of very interesting things in the financial world, and frankly, we were making some financial history in terms of some of the things that we were doing. And what we did all together as a team. And sure, we had people that were younger, but everybody was treated the same. And we all worked hard because we didn't have a hierarchy and we didn't have a lot of people, and so we were in the mix, you know, rubbing elbows with each other, just trying to get things done. And I think what that teaches you is that you really do need to treat people as people, and you need to respect who they are and what they think about and how they act, and we're all different, but it does force you to think about, okay, how are we going to treat people now? You know, we've grown into an organization from the 11th person on the payroll to 1,200 people now, some of whom are in this room tonight. And so we do have an organizational structure and everything else. But I think if my friends and partners, George Roberts and Henry Kravis, were sitting here tonight, they would tell you the same thing. We try to treat everybody as a person, not just as an employee, but as a person.
Sure, sure. And I think, you know, especially at KKR, I've worked with you guys intimately, and the philanthropic ethos of the company is built in with every aspect, right? Everything that you guys do, or the people that you hire. It's no secret today, we all know that doing good is good business. I think I took that from a page in your book. But my question to you is, you know, as kind of you have this kind of foundation from the leaders that philanthropy is something that you should all embody, what one area of the business has been most impacted by that ethos?
Okay, I'll go first. Well, first of all, obviously we started out as a very small organization, and we didn't really do anything philanthropically as an organization. We were doing things individually. And then probably 5 or 6 years ago, someone approached me. It was a guy from Deutsche Bank who had been in the Navy and said, look, you were in the Navy and we're putting together this group on Wall Street called That's on Wall Street. And you guys at KKR need to be involved in this. And I said, look, talk to me, I'll think about it. We generally haven't done things like that as an organization, and I'll try to make this short. I went to Henry and I said, Henry, we should actually do this as an organization. And he said, okay, why? And I told him why. And then he said, look, so there are 3 tiers, $500,000, $250,000, $100,000. And he said, so what level should we play at? Should we play at the $500,000 level? I said, no, that was Citibank and Deutsche Bank and Goldman Sachs and Morgan Stanley. I said, those guys are all significantly bigger than we are. And he kind of goes, yeah, but we can play with them. And I said, of course we can. That's not the point. The point is, we should go at the $100,000 level, and we should really try to get involved. And I said, we can do something that they can't do. And he said, okay, what's that? And I said, well, at the time, we had 35 portfolio companies in the United States. And I said, we can go to all of our companies and we can say to those people, you should hire best. You should interview them. You should try to hire them. They will make great employees. Okay. And Henry hadn't been in the military, but I had, and it was a very interesting experience for me. And as part of this, we started that program. So we have our own name, KKR Vets at Work is called. And several months ago, we just passed a major milestone. We have hired more than 50,000 veterans at KKR. didn't cost us a lot of money. It cost us a lot of effort. There are people in the room that can verify that what we put some people in charge of it. I was smart enough to go delegate to some people, and we've created a really great program for some people, frankly, who've done obviously a lot for our country and are underappreciated and don't necessarily have the appropriate resources when they get out of the military in terms of, okay, how do I find a job? How do I take the next step in my life? And so it's been a very satisfying experience for all of us.
Sure. Danny, what's one area of your business that has been impacted probably the most by your company's commitment to philanthropy?
I think the experience that we had with Shake Shack is a great example because Shake Shack was never, it was never conceived to be a business. It was conceived as a hot dog cart to support public art in Madison Square Park that we had raised a lot of money to help rebuild in 1997, 1998. And having made the park beautiful when it had been dangerous and forgettable, we then had to find a reason for people to use the park so that it would stay safe. And so we came up with this idea to have art in the park, in Madison Square Park. And the Public Art Fund, we hadn't raised any money yet for art, so we collaborated with the Public Art Fund of New York City, and they curated a piece of art from a Thai sculptor who had two big taxi cabs up on stilts, and he insisted on having a working hot dog cart go with his taxi cabs. His artistic statement was that everyone in the world has either been able to afford to be driven in a taxi or had to be the guy driving it, and everyone else in the world could either afford to buy a hot dog or had to be the guy selling it. It was kind of anticipating some of this income divide that we certainly know a lot more about today than we knew about in 1998. Actually, this was in 2001. The summer of 2001 was the first summer we did the hot dog cart. And the reason we volunteered to do the hot dog cart was I wanted to put our philosophy of enlightened hospitality to work. And I said, what if we could take our 5 coat checkers who normally won't have work until the weather gets cold in October, November, and give them a job? And then what if we could actually test our philosophy of hospitality with something as mundane as a hot dog? So we decided to do Chicago-style hot dogs because they have 9 classic toppings. And could we remember, you're the person who likes everything but mustard, and he's the guy that likes everything except pickle relish. I just wanted to see if it would work. And lo and behold, we got lines and lines and lines. And so even when the summer was done and the art project was taken down, the next summer was 2002. New York was depressed after 9/11. And the community said, even though there's a different piece of art, can you just bring back the hot dog cart? And so we said, sure, we'll be glad to do it. The same thing happened in year 3, 2003. And in 2003, since we had lost about $5,000 or $6,000 each of the first 2 years, there's a reason most people don't have 3 people working a hot dog cart. We decided we're gonna announce that we're going to donate 100% of our profits to Madison Square Park Conservancy. That's kind of easy if you've lost 5 or 6. So in year 3, we made $7,500, and then in year 4, 2004, we came up with this idea. I had read Billy Shore's book. Billy's the founder of Share Our Strength. I saw Allison here somewhere. And do I get a lot of whoop out of Share Our Strength? And Billy had written a book called The Cathedral Within, which talks about why you all are here, which is that within each one of us is a desire to be part of something way bigger than we are. And he had this concept in The Cathedral Within called community wealth. And he basically said, philanthropy is good to a point, and government is good to a point, but capitalism is going to constantly endure. And if you can find that intersection where you can create something with purpose that builds community wealth, it will sustain itself far further. So I read that and I said, I know what we're going to do. In year 4, we're going to raise money philanthropically to build this kiosk. And we're going to gift the kiosk to to Madison Square Park. So they'll be the landlord. And if it works, it'll be like a light bulb to moths and attract people to use the park and keep it safe. And since the park is the landlord, it should create some recurring income to keep the park beautiful and safe and programmed. Absolutely no idea that it would become a business, never mind a public company called Shake Shack. Nor did I have any idea that as of yesterday, when I went to a Madison Square Park Conservancy meeting, we learned that the revenue from that little 22-foot by 22-foot kiosk for Madison Square Park this year is over $1 million. So you want to ask about the intersection between business and philanthropy. That's a good story, and I hope to do it again.
Cheeseburgers? Everyone?
We have to come up with a different menu item next time.
All right, so
That's a great story.
it is a good story, and thank you for sharing that. Now, I want to ask a fun question, and this is one that Broden had wanted to ask, so Flanagan, okay. Tell us one thing that you know to be true, yet almost nobody agrees with you on. Paul?
Well, I don't think I'm smart enough to answer that question, Rosie, so if that's your
Trinity
question.
College, come on.
But,
All right, let's go.
I know something that I think everybody in this room will actually agree on rather than disagree with me on. And that's that what you're all doing in terms of trying to give back, to society in whatever way you're doing is really important. And I can remember my father always saying this to me, and he's deceased, but my father-in-law, who is 94, still says it's pretty much the same thing. And it's something to the effect of, this is not a dress rehearsal. You only get to do this once. So don't miss the opportunity, to really do something and try to make a difference. I mean, if I had to do it over again, I wish I had started younger. I'm not sure why I didn't. Actually, I'm sure why I didn't. I was working too hard and had a family and too many other responsibilities. But this generation, a lot of you, don't. I shouldn't say this, Nicole, but because you just got married, but you don't get married as young. I got married when I was 22, and my wife was 21, and so we had children when we were 24, and so between family and working, I didn't get around really to philanthropy till I was in my late 30s. You're all, not all, but a lot of you are much younger than that, and I applaud you for having started earlier, and I encourage you to keep going. And it's not a dress rehearsal. Make sure you do the things that you want to do, because you never know when it's going to end. So I think we all agree with that.
I didn't tell him to say that.
He's had time to think, see?
No, I actually think Paul retired the question. Got another one? I don't think I can do better than that. And I would agree with the very first thing Paul said, besides the last thing he said. The first thing he said was, far be it for me to think that what I think I know, you don't all know as well. But I think the thing I've had the most challenging time with as a leader is to convince people that you get more when you first give more. I think that business, unfortunately, teaches us the way to get more is to give a little less and charge a little bit more. Or to charge a little bit more and give exactly the same. And I think that whether you're thinking about this concept in business, there are today dollars, there are tomorrow dollars, and there are never dollars. I think it's really smart to not invest too many never dollars, but I think that tomorrow dollars are a really good investment, and a great way to do a tomorrow dollar investment is to give a little bit more today to someone who actually appreciates it. And I'll end with, I think when you serve on any type of a not-for-profit board, you are giving more, and I can promise you, you're going to get more out of it. You think you don't have time, but it actually makes more time. believe it or not, you become a better leader because you learn better time management skills. You learn ideas from other people who, while in the process of solving not-for-profit issues, are actually teaching you lessons that you can then apply to your own business. So that's my answer.
Well, I don't think I can do any better than that, so I think we're going to end there. And I want to thank you both so much for taking the time to join us out of your busy lives. And if anybody has any follow-up questions, all of our team members will be in the room. So let's give it up to you guys and welcome to that.
Let me just say one last thing. Thank you all for coming. And thank you for what you're doing. I mean, I obviously believe in Roden and his team in terms of having started CariClub and having created really the platform for people to have an avenue where they really can get involved. I mean, think about this, Andy. When we were their age, there was nothing like this, nothing. Okay, and so now you have a way to do this. So it's terrific that you're all here and that you're doing it. And make sure, I mean, you're all working someplace, and hopefully you're a client of CariClub. But make sure your colleagues there really get involved, because this is a unique opportunity in terms of there's never been anything like it. This has made it a lot easier for people to get involved, and people should take advantage of that. So thank you for coming.